In the 1960s in Mexico, access to education was still a big challenge. In 1965, the government started exploring a distance education strategy that used audiovisual resources to support learning. There was an experimental phase for a few years where these resources were used, and in 1968, telesecundarias were officially established. Telesecundarias are television schools. They are schools catered at 12 to 15-year-old students who live in remote or rural areas. On the screen, you can see two images that show what a telesecundaria classroom looks like. On the left, you'll see an older version of this type of classroom, and on the right, you'll see a more modern version of this type of classroom. So you can see that there's a television screen at the front. There's desks facing forward. And in terms of the layout, it is a very traditional classroom. On the right, you can see a military person. That's not the norm at telesecundarias. That's just the image I was able to find to show you. The lessons at telesecundarias tend to be divided into two blocks. In the first block, you have 15 minutes of television programs that are accessed via satellite or the internet. In the second block, there's 35 minutes of work guided by a face-to-face teacher. This means that a telesecundaria lesson is about 50 minutes long. There is a single teacher for all subjects per level. Interestingly, telesecundarias remain current in Mexico, and this has some advantages. Perhaps the most important one is that telesecundarias capitalized on the prevalence of televisions in the country. Currently, 91.2% of Mexican homes have a TV. This means that televisions are a technology with which most people are familiar, and this is useful. There are over 18,000 centers that are telesecundarias. This means that 6 out of every 10 public secondary schools are telesecundarias. Over 1 million students study in a telesecundaria. This is 20% of all secondary students. On the other hand, there are some downsides. There have been teacher reports of lacking the required equipment, knowledge, and training to support students. There have also been reports of students having limited digital literacy. While there's upsides and downsides, telesecundarias are still a big thing in Mexico, and in some cases, that's the only options for students to continue their education. Another distance education strategy that we had in the country that shaped what we are doing nowadays was proposed by the ANUYES. The ANUYES is the National Association of Universities and Higher Education Institutions. It was founded in 1950 with 26 higher education institutions. Currently, it has 211 members. While this might seem like a big number, you have to consider that there are currently almost 6,000 universities and higher education institutions in Mexico. So having a bit over 200 members is not a lot. And yet, they've managed to have quite an impact in terms of distance education in Mexico. In 1998, the ANUYES proposed a master plan of open and distance higher education. It emphasized the affordances of using technologies and online resources, and this was key for shaping what came next. It recognized the potential of distance education in terms of flexibility and diverse learning spaces. So after this plan, open and distance education initiatives started incorporating technologies. So in this timeline, I didn't add all the initiatives that you could find in the country, but just some of them to exemplify this process of incorporating technologies. So in 1972, we had the system of open and distance university, which was established in UNAM, which is the largest university in Mexico. 1980, we have a system of distance education. 1997, this is when the master plan that I told you about was already being talked about. We have the Virtual University of Tech de Monterrey, which is a private university. And from then on, we started having lots of digital or online universities. We have here in 2004, the Virtual University System. Here we have the Digital University of the Mexican State in 2012. And here you can see the logos of several of these initiatives that started using technologies. And at the time, we thought that we were doing quite well. We've had quite a tradition with distance education, started with printed magazines, courses via mail, the telesecundarias. Now we were incorporating technologies. In 2015, we had Mexico X, which is a platform for massive open online courses, or MOOCs. MOOCs were a big thing in the world in 2012, which was called the Year of the MOOC. So we were like 3 years late to join the MOOC scenario, but we were there, right? And we thought we were okay-ish. And then COVID happened.